Have you ever felt like people were pulling your strings without you even noticing? What if I told you that the mind games being played against you could be turned to your advantage? The ancient Stoics mastered this, not by out-talking others, but by outthinking them. Most men lose the game before they even realize it's being played. They react, explain themselves, chase validation, and confuse loudness with strength. But the Stoics knew a different path, one of calm control, strategic silence, and psychological leverage. In a world obsessed with appearances, they mastered invisibility and used it to command attention without seeking it. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding the rules of influence, so you don't become someone else's pawn. These 9 tactics are more than strategies. They are weapons for the mind, for the soul, for the modern man navigating a world full of noise. If you're ready to step into that power, let's begin. Tactic 1: the power of strategic silence. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill every gap in conversation, every uncomfortable pause with words, often unnecessary words, because silence feels like a vacuum, an unknown. But the man who understands the power of strategic silence wields a tool far stronger than any argument or declaration. He becomes unreadable, mysterious. In that unreadability lies a profound power. The Stoics understood silence as a form of strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This isn't just a call to moral superiority. It's a call to strategic restraint, to speak less, to act with purpose, and to let your silence speak volumes. In moments of conflict or tension, silence is not passivity. It is active mastery. Imagine a scenario. You're in a heated discussion. Voices are raised, accusations flying. The natural impulse is to defend yourself, to shout louder, to make your point undeniable. But instead, you choose silence. You lower your gaze, breathe slowly, and hold your peace. The room shifts. Suddenly, all eyes turn to you, waiting for your reaction. And in that waiting, power begins to shift. Silence forces others into uncertainty. When you withhold your reaction, you disrupt the expected flow of interaction. People begin to question, what is he thinking? Why isn't he responding? What does he know that we don't? This psychological tension creates a vacuum that others instinctively try to fill, often revealing more about themselves in the process. The strategic use of silence is like a chess player's patience. You don't move recklessly. You wait for the right moment, for your opponent's weakness to appear. In life, this means resisting the urge to react emotionally or impulsively. Instead, you observe, assess, and choose your response deliberately. Epictetus taught that we should always be asking ourselves, is this something that is or is not in my control? Our words and reactions are within our control. The actions and words of others are not. By mastering silence, you take control of what you can, the power of your own voice and presence. Picture a social setting where someone tries to bait you with a provocative comment or insult. The crowd expects you to react, to defend yourself, but you stay quiet. Your calmness unsettles them. Their bait falls flat because it did not provoke the desired response. This silence is your fortress. It protects you from emotional manipulation. Silence can also be a mirror. By not engaging in petty conflicts or reactive exchanges, you reflect others' behavior back onto them. They see themselves in your stillness, often more clearly than you see them. This reflection can prompt self-awareness in others, changing the dynamics without confrontation. When you wield silence strategically, you send a clear message. You do not need to prove your worth. You are not controlled by external chaos or opinions. Your power is rooted in your calm presence, your ability to listen, to wait, and to act with intention. In a world overwhelmed by noise, chatter, and endless debate, strategic silence is a rare and commanding force. It commands respect, fosters curiosity, and creates an aura of inner strength that words alone cannot achieve. Remember, silence is not emptiness. It is a presence so strong that it commands attention without uttering a sound. The man who masters this knows that sometimes the loudest statement is the one left unspoken. Tactic 2. The art of controlled detachment. There's a profound reason why men lose their power when they become too emotionally attached. The more you invest your feelings, your hopes, and your identity in how others see you or how situations unfold, the easier it becomes for outside forces to manipulate your mind and control your behavior. The Stoics taught that true mastery begins where attachment ends. This is not a call to coldness or indifference, but a call to clarity. A clarity that arises from understanding what is truly within your control and what isn't. When someone ignores you, disrespects you, or tries to provoke a reaction, your instinct might scream at you to respond, to fight back, to make them see your worth. But the moment you feel that urge, that's where you pause. That's where you detach. Controlled detachment is about stepping back emotionally without stepping away physically. It's about creating a mental distance that allows you to observe without becoming entangled. This doesn't mean you stop caring or feeling. It means you refuse to let your feelings dictate your actions. You separate your sense of self from others' opinions and behaviors. Picture this. You're texting someone who once seemed fully invested. Suddenly, their responses grow distant, sparse, or non-committal. Your heart races. You feel the itch to reach out, to fix, to explain, to regain that connection. But instead of acting on that impulse, you stop. You breathe. You remind yourself that your value isn't tied to their attention. You step back and observe. This emotional space is power. It's where you reclaim control over your desires, your reactions, and your peace of mind. Chrysippus, one of the great architects of Stoic philosophy, taught that freedom begins the moment we stop being ruled by our impulses. And few impulses are stronger and more dangerous than the need to be chosen, to be validated, and to be loved by others. Now imagine another scenario, this time in a high-pressure workplace. A colleague subtly undermines you during a meeting. A passive-aggressive remark, a challenge to your ideas, a snide comment meant to unsettle. The crowd waits for your response, expecting a defensive rebuttal or a show of strength, but you don't take the bait. You maintain calm, you detach, you nod politely, and then return your focus to the subject at hand. In that moment, you're not disengaged. You're in full control. By refusing to emotionally react, you become untouchable. You show strength not through the volume or aggression, but through composure and self-possession. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wisdom captures the essence of controlled detachment. It's not about shutting yourself off from the world, but about being so firmly anchored in your own mind that external storms cannot sway you. Detachment sharpens your vision. It lets you see manipulation without falling prey to it. It allows you to remain rooted in your values and your purpose, even when the world around you shifts unpredictably. It's the quiet strength of a man who knows what he stands for and doesn't need others to validate it. You still care, but with discipline. You still love, but without addiction. You still engage, but without losing yourself in others' chaos. In a society obsessed with instant gratification and emotional reactivity, this form of detachment is revolutionary. It's self-defense in its purest form, and it's a cornerstone of the modern Stoics mind game. Tactic 3. Don't react, reflect. There's a brief, almost imperceptible moment between what happens to you and how you respond. It's in this small gap, this space of choice, that your true power lies. Most men don't notice this moment. They react instantly, driven by emotion, ego, or impulse. They lash out, defend, or withdraw in anger or hurt, unknowingly surrendering their control. Reactivity is a form of slavery. When you react, you hand over the reins of your mind to others, letting them dictate your emotional state and your actions. The Stoics teach us to break free from this cycle by replacing impulsive reactions with deliberate reflection. Epictetus famously said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." In other words, no one can truly disturb your peace without your consent. Understanding this truth is the first step toward mastery. It's a profound realization that the trigger is external, but the reaction is your choice. Imagine yourself in a high-pressure situation, a heated argument, an unexpected insult, or a moment of public embarrassment. Your instinct is to fight back, to prove yourself, to silence the challenger, but instead, you pause. You create a deliberate silence. You breathe deeply and turn your attention inward. This pause is not weakness. It is strength cloaked in stillness. Like a seasoned boxer in the ring, you don't throw wild punches or respond to every jab. You wait patiently, conserve your energy, and strike only when the moment is right and the impact will be decisive. Picture the boxer dodging a flurry of attacks, eyes calm, movements measured. His opponent's fury only sharpens his focus. In life, the ability to reflect before reacting allows you to see beyond the immediate chaos, to recognize the motives behind others' actions, the patterns that repeat, and the true stakes of the conflict. This reflection transforms your understanding of yourself and your environment. Instead of being consumed by anger or fear, you use these emotions as information. They become signals pointing to where your ego still clings or where old wounds need healing. This self-awareness is the foundation of growth. In social settings, this tactic is a game changer. Imagine a group of friends or colleagues where subtle provocations and power plays are common. The impulsive man takes every bait, escalating conflicts and losing respect. The Stoic man, however, observes quietly. He doesn't fuel the fire. Instead, he remains calm, letting others reveal their true nature through their own words and actions. By choosing reflection over reaction, you reclaim control of your mind and your narrative. You stop being a puppet of external forces and become the master of your internal world. This mental sovereignty is the key to resilience, influence, and enduring respect. Marcus Aurelius captured this wisdom when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The ability to choose your response especially in difficult moments, is the hallmark of true strength. So next time you're provoked, whether by criticism, rejection, or conflict, pause, reflect. Don't give your power away to the moment. Instead, anchor yourself in reason and choose your response with intention. This deliberate choice separates the men who live by external validation from those who command their own fate. It is not an easy path, but it is the Stoic way and the path to freedom. Tactic 4. Become emotionally unavailable on purpose. Most people believe emotional availability is a virtue, that vulnerability, openness, and access are the signs of a healthy man. But the Stoics saw things differently. They understood that unchecked emotional availability, given to the wrong people, in the wrong situations, becomes a liability, not a strength. And that's why they practice something modern society often misunderstands: emotional unavailability by design. You're not unavailable because you're cold. You're unavailable because you're calculated. Because you've learned that emotional exposure is a tool, and tools must be used with intent. Seneca once warned, "He who suffers before it is necessary, suffers more than is necessary." That's exactly what happens when you allow people unrestricted access to your emotional world. You begin to suffer for things they haven't even done yet. You begin to anticipate betrayal, overthink silence, and perform for connection. This isn't vulnerability, it's emotional slavery. Now picture this. You've been seeing someone new. The connection is strong until it isn't. Suddenly she pulls back. Shorter replies, delayed responses, plans fall through. Most men, conditioned to fear abandonment, respond with desperation. They chase, they explain, they ask, "Is something wrong?" And in doing so, they reveal their emotional dependence. But not you. You don't explain. You don't react. You don't lean in. You lean back. Because you understand that emotional energy must be earned, not handed out. You give space. You become distant, but not out of spite, out of principle, out of self-respect. You know that attention loses value the moment it becomes predictable. And when you withhold it, you become scarce. Scarcity creates mystery, and mystery creates pull. That's why the Stoic man doesn't panic when someone distances themselves. He welcomes it, because distance reveals what proximity conceals. You begin to see who values you when your energy isn't flooding the space. And often, that's when they come back. Not because you chase them, but because your silence echoed louder than their noise. Now take another scenario. Someone close to you, maybe a partner, maybe a friend, tries to bait you emotionally. They say, "You've changed," or "Why are you being distant?" or worse, "You must not care anymore." These aren't questions, they're traps, designed to make you explain yourself, designed to pull you back into a frame where they control the emotional tempo. And here's where most men fail. They defend, they seek to reassure, they break their own frame just to prove they still care. But the Stoic man, he pauses, he listens, and then he says nothing. Because silence in this moment is not passive, it's posture. It's the declaration that I do not exist for your emotional convenience, that I will not perform just to soothe your insecurity. Epictetus taught that our emotions should remain within our jurisdiction, not surrender to the whims of others. When someone tries to emotionally manipulate you, the most powerful response is non-availability, not ghosting, not malice, but distance, rooted in self-respect. You're not punishing them, You're protecting your inner world from unnecessary disturbance. And now, consider the third form of this tactic, the most advanced version, high-status self-withdrawal. You've worked on yourself. You've built value. You've become someone people want access to. In conversations, you've noticed people orbit around you. They seek your opinion, your time, your energy. At first, this feels good, but then the energy starts to leak. People begin expecting access to your attention, not because they've earned it, but because you've always given it. That's when you pull back, not in anger, but in control. You show up less, speak less, react slower, and something fascinating happens. People begin to project power onto you, not because you said more, but because you now say less. Your emotional restraint becomes a form of psychological dominance. You're no longer the one chasing connection. You've become the one who grants access. And that right there is the real meaning of being emotionally unavailable on purpose. It's not avoidance. It's emotional curation. It's choosing when to engage, when to open up, and when to preserve your peace. It's remembering that your emotions are sacred, and not everyone deserves a seat at that table. When you stop bleeding energy for those who don't reciprocate, you become lighter, quieter, stronger. And in that quiet, people feel your shift. They chase your attention. They crave your warmth. Because your absence now speaks louder than your presence ever did. Tactic 5. Master the energy withdrawal. Energy is your most valuable currency. It's not your words, your looks, or even your intelligence. It's your presence, your attention, your focus. What you give energy to grows, and what you remove energy from dies. Most people never learn this. That's why they waste their power explaining themselves to people who don't listen, fighting for people who don't care, and pouring attention into places that give them nothing back. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that what you don't react to eventually withers away. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, don't meet force with force. Don't meet chaos with chaos. Don't meet disrespect with argument. Instead, withdraw. Reclaim your energy. Starve the dynamic. Let's be clear. Energy withdrawal isn't ghosting. It's not about disappearing randomly or avoiding responsibility. It's about calculated disengagement. It's when you recognize that your presence is being drained, manipulated, or devalued, and you decide no more. You stop feeding the loop. No more chasing. No more defending. No more trying to fix what never valued you in the first place. Imagine a scenario. Someone you've dated starts playing games. Inconsistent messages, delayed replies, hot one moment, cold the next. The average man gets hooked here. He leans in. He tries harder. He sends paragraphs, trying to bring back the version of her he once knew. But the Stoic man, he does the opposite. He doesn't announce anything. He simply starts withdrawing energy. Fewer responses, slower timing, no emotional commentary, just space. And in that space, the power shifts. Because here's the truth. What you no longer fuel starts to collapse under its own weight. Most people only feel your worth after you've stopped showing up for them. And when you remove your energy without explanation, you trigger a deep fear. What changed? Why isn't he reacting anymore? Did I lose him? That silence, that distance, it creates a psychological vacuum, and people will fill it with their own doubt. But here's the key. You don't withdraw energy to get a reaction. That's manipulation. You withdraw Because you recognize the drain, you recognize the imbalance, and you choose self-respect over validation. You choose your peace over their confusion. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And there is no greater demonstration of that freedom than the ability to walk away from a dynamic that disrespects your presence, not with anger, not with words, but with absence. Because your absence, when rooted in self-respect, is louder than any argument you could ever make. Mastering energy withdrawal means learning to leave without drama, disengage without bitterness, and vanish without explanation. It means you stop giving CPR to dead situations. You stop begging someone to see your worth. You stop lighting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. And when you do that, the entire power balance shifts, not just in the relationship, but in you. Because now, you no longer need closure. You no longer need to be heard. You no longer need to be understood. You just need your energy back. And once you reclaim it, you become dangerous again. Tactic 6. Control the frame. Control the outcome. In every interaction, a frame is established, whether you're aware of it or not. It's the unspoken agreement that defines who's leading the energy, who's chasing, who's qualifying, who's reacting. And here's the brutal truth. If you're not controlling the frame, you're inside someone else's. This is how most men lose power without realizing it. They enter conversations trying to be liked, trying to prove they're enough. They over-validate, over-explain, and over-perform, all without realizing they're inside her frame, their boss's frame, their opponent's frame. They're playing by rules they didn't create. And when you do that, the outcome is already decided. You've lost. The Stoics didn't chase control, they embodied it. Marcus Aurelius didn't command with emotion, he commanded with calm. His frame was quiet, grounded, immovable. And that's what you must become. Not reactive, not loud, but unshakable in your own presence. Controlling the frame doesn't mean dominating others. It means defining how you operate and refusing to step outside that for anyone. It means you don't beg, you don't justify, you don't seek permission to exist. Your words are slow, your gaze is steady. Your energy says, "I'm not here to convince, I'm here to choose." Scenario 1, the social test. Imagine this, you're on a date and she tests you. She jokes at your expense or challenges your confidence. Most men fumble here. They overreact. They try to fix the moment by proving they're still worthy. But when you control the frame, you don't respond to the test. You flip it. You smile slightly. You say nothing. Or you return the pressure with a calm, playful counter. And just like that, you shift the power. Because you stayed grounded while she reached. Frame control works because it reverses emotional gravity. It forces others to calibrate to you. Your pace, your energy, your values. You become the standard. And when you are the standard, people chase you. Not because you asked, but because your frame has silently demanded it. Scenario 2, the status room. Now picture this, a team meeting. The boss is sharp, fast-talking, intimidating. He throws a passive-aggressive remark your way. A little dig, disguised as a joke, but meant to knock you down a peg. The room chuckles, watching your reaction. Here's where most men lose their frame. They get flustered, try to laugh it off nervously, or overcompensate by talking more. But you smile, slowly, maybe nod. Then you sit back in silence. You don't defend. You don't retaliate. You hold eye contact for just a second longer than expected, and then you return your focus to the agenda. That one moment shifts the energy of the entire room. You didn't fight for power. You absorbed it by not flinching. You didn't need the last word. You became the last impression, because the one who controls his reaction controls the room. That's the Stoic way, to hold your frame with such composure, such grounded silence, that everyone else is forced to consider why they feel slightly off balance around you. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. Frame control isn't about being in control of them. It's about being so in control of you that they have no choice but to adjust. Tactic 7. Use the invisible mirror. One of the most powerful tactics in Stoic psychology isn't persuasion. It isn't confrontation. It's reflection. When people treat you poorly, cross your boundaries, or attempt subtle dominance games, most men react. They explain. They argue. They try to fix the situation through emotional output. But the Stoic? He doesn't react. He doesn't explain. He reflects. This is what I call the invisible mirror, a mental strategy where you silently show others the weight of their own behavior without ever announcing what you're doing. You don't retaliate. You don't complain. You simply mirror their energy back to them with calm detachment. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best way to avenge yourself is to not become like them." That's the essence of this tactic. You don't stoop. You don't chase. You don't lose composure to prove a point. Instead, you use their behavior as a spotlight, not by fighting it, but by letting it echo back in silence. Let's take a common situation. Someone you're dating starts pulling away. They text less. They cancel plans. They go cold. Most men panic. They try harder. They send longer messages. They start performing to regain control. But the Stoic man does none of that. He doesn't chase. He doesn't ask why. He simply mirrors the distance. He slows down. He withholds emotional access, not to manipulate, but to protect his dignity. And then something interesting happens. The other person feels it. That quiet shift, that change in energy. Suddenly they're the one wondering what happened. Because the mirror doesn't shout, it reveals. And when someone sees their own coldness reflected back at them, they begin to question it. But this doesn't just apply in romantic dynamics. Now imagine a different kind of environment. A group of men, friends, co-workers, teammates. You're in a room where status is subtle but present. One of them starts throwing out low-key jabs, passive-aggressive comments, social tests disguised as jokes. You can feel the bait, the invitation to react. Most men fall right into it. They try to joke back harder, or they defend themselves nervously. But you don't flinch. You meet the jab with stillness. A pause, a knowing look, a slow breath, maybe a small smirk, maybe nothing at all. You say less, and yet somehow, you say everything. In that moment, the mirror activates. The group notices. The one who tried to undermine you now feels slightly off balance. Because when you don't react, you force others to sit in their own reflection. And very few people are comfortable there. That's what the invisible mirror does. It doesn't confront. It exposes. It shows others who they are by refusing to become what they expect. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks ill of you, do not make excuses. Simply say, 'He must not know all my faults,' or 'he would not have mentioned only these.'" That is the ultimate reflection. Not defense, but composure. Not ego, but wisdom. Because here's the truth. What you ignore is often repeated, but what you reflect is often corrected. The mirror is powerful because it creates silence where drama is expected. It creates self-awareness where manipulation once lived. And it returns ownership of behavior to where it belongs, not on you, but on them. You don't mirror to punish. You mirror to disengage with dignity, to respond without absorbing, to make the message land without ever raising your voice. And once you've mastered this, you realize something profound. You never had to control anyone. You just had to stop giving them a place to hide from themselves. Tactic 8. Choose peace over performance. Most men spend their entire lives performing. Performing to be liked, to be accepted, to feel worthy. They shift who they are, depending on who's watching. They smile when they're hurting, stay silent when they're disrespected, numb themselves in order to stay likable. But Stoicism doesn't teach you to perform. It teaches you to detach from the audience completely. Because when your worth depends on how the world sees you, you're no longer a man. You're an actor in someone else's play. Seneca once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." When your energy is scattered, chasing admiration, approval, applause, you lose your center. You lose your peace. You lose yourself. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop performing, you start becoming dangerous because you no longer need the room. You no longer crave being understood. You've chosen peace, not performance, as your metric for power. Picture this. Someone tries to start an argument with you. A partner, a friend, a coworker. They twist your words, provoke your ego, bait you to react. Your instincts flare. Your pride wants to speak. But in that moment, you pause. You remember, I don't owe anyone a performance. I owe myself peace. So you don't respond. You don't argue. You don't explain your silence. You just remain still, calm, grounded. And suddenly, they look foolish screaming into your stillness. You've won without fighting, because you've chosen inner command over emotional chaos. And that is power. In another scenario, imagine you're with a group of men, friends, business peers. There's a subtle competition happening beneath the jokes. Who's got more success, more attention, more dominance? One guy interrupts you to tell his own story. Another subtly one-ups your win. The room is loud. The ego's louder. Most men perform here. They exaggerate, argue, try or reclaim center stage. But the Stoic doesn't flinch. He doesn't compete for validation in rooms he wouldn't trade places with. He lets the others posture while he remains silent, composed, almost amused, because he knows who he is without needing to prove it. That silence, that calm, it makes people nervous because they can't get a read on you. And that mystery is magnetic. Here's the truth. Performance is rooted in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of invisibility, fear of not being enough. But peace? Peace is rooted in sovereignty. It means your identity isn't up for auction. It means your value was never theirs to define. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind. not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's what peace is. It's not the absence of conflict. It's the refusal to participate in unworthy ones. And when you choose peace over performance, when you stop explaining yourself, stop justifying your silence, stop apologizing for your stillness, you become undeniable. Because the man who no longer needs the spotlight is the man who starts casting the shadows. Tactic 9. Let them reveal themselves. The most potent form of control is not in forcing change, not in arguing your point, nor in trying to manipulate others into submission. True mastery lies in the art of observation, the power to step back, detach, and watch without reaction. After you've cultivated silence, practiced emotional detachment, chosen peace over performance, and mastered the energy to withdraw, you reach a rare place of strength, a place where you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone, where your worth no longer depends on others' validation. In this space, you simply let people reveal who they really are. Because when you stop reacting to the noise, when you refuse to be the stage for their drama, what's left is their raw, unfiltered self. Imagine a friend who always promised, but rarely delivered. The man who said, "I'm there for you," but when times got tough, vanished. You could chase, confront, or demand answers. Or you could simply stop engaging, stop being the crutch, and watch as his true priorities show in his absence. Or consider a partner who once seemed deeply connected. Their affection fluctuates, their attention fades, and returns unpredictably. The reactive man chases, questions, pleads for reassurance. The Stoic man, however, stays silent, detached, and still. In that stillness, the partner's true intentions emerge, clear and undeniable. No forcing, no begging, just truth. This is the power of absence. When you stop feeding the dynamic, when you release the urge to control outcomes, you give space for authenticity, or dissolution to reveal itself. Marcus Aurelius taught us, if someone does wrong, it is because they do not know better. This calls for compassion, yes, but also for discernment. There comes a time when you must accept that not everyone will meet you halfway. And the highest wisdom is knowing when to stop trying to teach, to fix, or to convince. Sometimes the greatest lesson you give is through your own absence. You become the silent witness to their actions, their choices, their true character. And in that witnessing, you reclaim your most precious resources, your time, no longer wasted on illusions, your energy, no longer drained by chaos, your peace, no longer disrupted by uncertainty. This is the final victory in the mind game. To disengage not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect and clarity. To watch without judgment, but with unwavering awareness. To let the truth finally surface. Because when you let others reveal themselves, you no longer need to play their game. You no longer need to react to their moves. You no longer need to carry the weight of their masks. You stand free, unburdened, and unstoppable. This is the ultimate Stoic reversal. To win not by force, but by letting go. To conquer not by battling others, but by mastering yourself. And to achieve not by controlling others, but by allowing truth to unfold on its own time. That is the mind game mastered. That is Stoic power. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel for more Stoic wisdom. See you in the next video.